What's up, everybody? It's your boy C-Roc on the What Are You Made Of podcast. I just want to thank all of you guys for listening, your support. I can't say that enough. The gratitude means something to me. And, for being such an infancy stage of a podcast, to have gone to the levels that we've gone to already and hit the top 25 in Canada under entrepreneurial podcasts, top 100 in USA. I'm going to celebrate for 1 second, and then I'm going on to the next target, which is the top 10. That's our target. I have no idea how we're going to get there yet. I'm just committing to it, and I'm going to figure out the rest later. But thank you for listening again. I appreciate all of your support. Guys, I always want to remind you of the one dominating rule of the Waymo movement. It's to turn all setbacks, disappointments, letdowns, anything that appears negative into rocket fuel for your future. Once you become aware of this rule, your life will never, ever, ever, ever be the same. You will not only be able to handle things better, you will live and operate at much higher levels than you could have ever imagined before. That's our dominating rule, guys. That's what the What Are You Made Of movement is all about. And without much further ado, I want to introduce my friend, my guest, Chris VonLindenberg, a.k.a. Chris CV, or just V for short. I call him Chris V sometimes. Fun fact, his full name actually has more letters than the alphabet. V is an entrepreneur and a board-certified financial planner professional. He's the founder and CEO of Lindenberg Financial, Inc., a financial services company which presently serves over 1,000 households, including high-income professionals and business owners throughout the United States. As an advisor, Chris V's mission is coaching people to align their economic resources and capabilities together with a vision of living out their best life. Under his leadership, the Lindenberg financial team also embraces giving back to our community with their talent, having a very unique niche, specializing, listen to this, and value proposition in helping our community's law enforcement professionals. And this is something that I'm proud to be associated with Chris for. He's a friend of mine. He helps me with my finances. He helps me with my goal setting. And I've been working with him for years now. And also, let me finish this before I get into something else. But V is also a co-founder of the company of Divorce together with his wife, the company of Divorce, right? His wife, Alyssa, as a certified divorce financial analyst, Chris V and a team of strategic partner guide families with significant net worth and financial resources through the financial elements of divorce, which can be a difficult time. We've done a lot of divorce situations in the mortgage business, helping refi people. It's never easy situation. And, a lot of people need help with that. It's a niche, great niche to be able to help people. But anyway, back in, before I let you talk, Chris, back in probably 2012, I met you and I wrote down a number, and I'm transparent on this show. I wrote down a number of $500,000. I want to make $500,000. And honestly, I couldn't even imagine that at that time. I think the most I had made at that time was around 200, 220 maybe. So I was thinking about over doubling my income. And we did a spreadsheet together of personal, financial, spiritual, all kinds of goals. And I wrote $500,000 a year down. And that year I hit that number and blew it away by 100,000. And so I just want to thank you for that. I know that's something that we talk about a lot. A lot of people talk about goals, but I never sat down and had somebody really call me out on it and actually give me a homework assignment to do. And I hit that number. And, ever since then, goals have been a big part of mine. And so recently I've been even not just trying to double, but 10X everything. So, Chris, welcome to the show, brother.
Awesome. Thanks for having me. I'm really grateful to be here and help you with this movement. And a lot of good stuff happened, good momentum. So thank you.
Yeah, look, Chris, everybody's got a story. And the What Are You Made Of movement's all about a story. What's your story, brother?
You trying to pick me up?
That's my pickup line from back in the day.
I know.
I don't know if I use that on Jen or not.
I probably have it in my notes.
So, yeah, what's your story, man?
Yeah, it's interesting. So VonLindenberg is a very, very, very German name, and it's kind of comical because people say, well, Lindenberg Financial, VonLindenberg, well, which is it? And why do you do it? Well, when my ancestors came over from Germany, they were supposed to drop after the first generation. It's that way I understand it. They're supposed to drop the Von, and it's just supposed to be Lindenberg. And so Lindenberg Financial has a special spot in my heart, and it's a little different than my last name, but kind of the descendant of some German drivers. And got a grandfather on one side was an engineer. Grandfather on the other side was an auto body and fender guy. And so I've got that German driver OCD engineering mindset all wrapped into one. So it all kind of started there. But one of the things my grandmother always reminded me of is she goes, Chris, you would do really great in a small town where you would know everyone and you'd get an opportunity to really just just have relationships. She just saw that something special in me when I was a kid, and it was kind of interesting. And I didn't give it much thought at the time, but it makes sense.
Well, how old was that when she was saying that?
Oh man, we were on a family trip. It was the year that O.J. Simpson got arrested. I don't know what that year was. Is it 1993? So I'd have been 12, 13, 14.
You really remember the year O.J. got arrested?
Oh yeah, Forrest Gump came out.
Oh, geez. I remember Forrest Gump too, but I guess it was 93 now that I think about it.
Yeah, I got some good memories, but that whole OJ thing, I can tell you right where I was when OJ Simpson was in the Bronco.
Yeah, you know what? Now that I think about it, I was doing stucco back in the day with my uncles and grandfather, and we were out. I think it was in the summertime.
It was.
Yeah, because I was mixing mud, as us Italians do.
There you go. I was driving my grandma around in a golf cart in Belhaven, North Carolina, which is this little town off the Intercoastal Waterway. We were on a 6-week-long trip together. My parents, my grandparents, me, and I think we had our family dog, all on this really small confined space of a boat. It was quite an interesting experience, but a lot of little small towns.
You know what's funny too? VonLindenberg, Landenberg. Didn't you used to live, or don't you live near Landenberg, PA?
I live in Landenberg, Pennsylvania. Yeah, we're the VonLindenbergs of Landenberg.
What other bergs are there? Do you ever drive a car that's like a Volksberg?
Volksberg? No.
But that's funny because my dad's side of the family is from Kennett Square, Chester County, and so I have fond memories as a kid up there. So anyway, continue. I apologize.
No, it's all good. But background story, and Mike, kind of feeding off your story. I grew up in a very blue collar family. My dad was a hard worker, one of 6 kids, and he was the oldest boy, and he was a longshoreman. What I'll tell you is he was really good. He was great at doing work, and they don't build him like that anymore. He did what he said what he did, and got the job done. He'd be the first one to arrive, last one to leave. And, if you do something, you do it right. And, having that background, he was a longshoreman. We really didn't have a lot of resources. And so we weren't really upper class, but I'd say we were middle class, middle upper. And one of the things that's really cool, that's unique for me, is that I grew up boating since before I could walk. My dad always had boats, even before he met my mom. And so he worked really, really, really hard. He went to school to actually be a teacher. And I think my perception on this is that maybe he struggled to motivate others. Like he could go demonstrate and he could do the work. He was an athlete, many different sports, all state, just an amazing guy, but he struggled to actually influence others and to be the team leader other than by example. And so what was interesting about that is that we had enough money that we were able to have a boat, and that was sort of like our second home. And really it's like, as who's that singer? Is it Alan Jackson talks about Redneck Yacht Club, the floating trailer park, right? Am I on the right track there?
I think so.
Yeah, that's basically what we did every weekend. Was we hung out at a marina, and honestly, we didn't have the money to take the boat very far or to use it very often. And my dad, refused to buy me a car when I was a kid, but he got me a boat. And boats burn gas. And he's like, basically, here's this boat, and good luck with it. And that kind of spurred this entrepreneurial drive where I started washing people's boats for them, doing some detailing. I mean, I used to wax that thing. I mean, some people had cars, but I had a boat. So my buddies would all drive the car down. We'd drive down together and we'd have the boat, but I had to have this second job, this side work, this detailing business for yachts, just to have gas money. And so I'd say that actually did me a solid by giving me a boat, but no money to use it.
Right. Yeah. So that was, how old were you when you started like really getting into like driving boats and stuff?
Oh man. Well, gosh, I've been boating all my life. So probably
sailing or motor?
Powerboat.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Yep. Powerboat. And, I'd say we were around a group of pretty successful, motivated people because they all had these boats, which were luxury assets at the time. But I was around a really influential group, and being an only child, I was always in an environment where I would hear the adults talk, and good and bad. But in any event, it was very influential. And I think one of the most significant parts is my dad, his best friend, real successful guy, unfortunately died suddenly at 48. And he was building a dream house on the water, had a beautiful boat. I mean, had multiple big boats, 58-foot sport fish. My parents used to travel with him to the Bahamas. And it was instrumental because the things that my parents did with their best friends were really influential for me. Even though I didn't go on all those trips, it was influential because I'm like, wait, they took a boat to the Bahamas? They took a private boat to the Bahamas? Like,
right. So it kind of made it real to you.
It did.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it planted the seed like a bucket list item. And I thought, man, if one day before I die, I can get on a boat to the Bahamas, maybe on my own boat, that'd be really cool. And a
But
lot of people
hold on right there. I don't want to lose the spot, but I want to point out something here. So it made it real to you, but the idea of calling it a bucket list item to me makes it more far-fetched than reality of actually being able to attain it. Can you talk about that for a second? Like, what are your thoughts on that? Like bucket list, I understand people have bucket lists. They want to do something before they die, right? But is that pushing it out to too far fantasy world? Or,
Mike,
by the way, I heard you say that the other day in one of our meetings.
I think it comes back to maybe the term influence. We go through life. There are people and situations and experiences which give us influence. And when we get that influence, it does something for us. Either it's planting little seeds of what's possible or what you can do, or how you should handle a situation, whatever the case may be. There's seeds of influence. And I think we oftentimes limit ourselves of what we think we're capable of based upon the experiences we have and what we see. And, I almost took a career in law enforcement, being a union guy, getting paid hourly based on time and effort, not based on results, time and effort. I almost made that big mistake. I say mistake because I think I would have squandered my potential, but my dad was a time and effort guy, man. Like he worked 70 plus hours a week over a 43-year career. His last 10 years before he retired, he was 82.26 hours a week the guy worked. He was a workaholic. He lived in his car. And I had the foresight to realize that that's not what I wanted. And I saw that my dad's friend who passed away at a young age, I saw that he was able to achieve significantly greater results by leveraging other people and by working in a different environment of results economy than just time and effort. And I'll just say that it turned into a bucket list for me because I was viewing it as a pinnacle of what I wanted to achieve, because it was the pinnacle of what I saw him achieve before he died.
Gotcha. Makes sense.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
So I think had he lived with us, he was kind of like a second dad in a way, but had he lived another 10 years, what he would have been capable of achieving would have just helped drive my bar way higher.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So talk about that law enforcement thing. So something that intrigues me, you went and you were thinking about doing that and decided not to because you wanted to get paid for achievement and effort rather than time.
Yeah.
Right. And that's the difference for a lot of people that are listening to this show too. Salary and hourly, and I don't want to offend anybody, but to me, it's a trap because you become in a situation where you're relying upon that. Your time is being bought. And then no matter how hard you work, you're only going to achieve certain amount. And then you can get promotions, but you're kind of a trap to that. And then so many people are so scared to leave that because of that security that they get held down. And so if they were to just leave it and work as hard as they are there, they would make more money. And then they would find out that, hey, wait a minute, if I work a little bit even harder, I could really blow this thing up and maybe make twice as much. But so then you're in a position where your niche is law enforcement and you're advising the law enforcement on what to do with their money. But do you ever get caught in that conflict a little bit where, hey man, maybe you'd be a great salesperson, that kind of thing?
Well, what's funny is hourly is you totally run into a capacity issue, right? There's only so many hours in a day. You hit a ceiling, right? If you got to do your 40 hours a week and then you get your overtime, you straight up, you have a capacity issue, right? It's like owning a car wash. You can only wash a car in such a short amount of time and you can only get so many cars through the door. And you have a capacity issue. So time and effort economy kind of stinks. And I really feel like to break through that, you've got to approach it differently, which is kind of funny because I actually went to school for engineering, switched to business, graduated criminal justice all in 4 years, thought I was going to be a state trooper. I was an intern. And I realized that it wasn't the right fit for me when I started doing ride-alongs. I realized that, frankly, it was a bit of a thankless profession. I realized that it takes a special person to do that job, and I wasn't it. And it was highly competitive to get in, and I didn't want to take a seat from somebody else. And honestly, I fell backwards into sales. Looking back, I had a guidance counselor in high school that said I'd be great at sales, but I never thought about it, and became a fixed insurance salesman, believe it or not, right out of school doing financial planning, which was really selling insurance. And what ultimately, led me to this was I can work as hard as I want. I didn't have any money, so I couldn't spend, I didn't have any money to spend, so I didn't have any free time that way. I was bored. So I was able to be a workaholic like my dad, and I was able to get paid on results. And I just broke through. I just looked at whatever they told me was the floor. That was my, the goal. That was my floor. And I always did everything as much as I could. And so I was the first one in, last one to leave when I started in the financial services industry, set the bar higher on a lot of records for the firm that I worked at. And ultimately, I just had this, I've always had this internal drive that, entrepreneurial spirit. I captained a private yacht when I was in high school and college, which was pretty neat. And I got exposed to a bigger future, if you will, that I was previously limiting myself on based on my life experiences.
Yeah. So I want to talk about any negatives, hurdles, setbacks. Give me some of those that happen to you that you use now and you feed off of. That's what I want to know.
Well, I've been called a failure. I've been told that I was going to let everyone down. I was giving up. And that was all when I was leaving my firm. When I was the top dog at the firm, I was the young guy and top dog. Like, it was like, I hate to call it like a mafia family, but when you're in and you're working your tail off and, you're breaking all the records, everyone's rallying behind you. But as soon as you realize that maybe I'm not in the right spot, I was working for someone else. I'll say that I was fraught with internal conflicts of, as I was becoming a CFP, you have to agree to be a fiduciary. And I thought, how can I be a fiduciary if I have a boss telling me the product I've got to sell to a client and he's never met the client? He doesn't understand what the goals are, but every solution was a certain type of life insurance policy. I was fraught with conflict. But when I left, I was told how I was letting everyone down. I was told that I was a failure. I was given that fuel even back in like high school, where I had this niche. I went to a VOTEC high school and I had a way of skipping class, still getting straight A's. And I always had a way of getting great grades, but never actually being in class. I was like the only kid in my high school to go on college waiver instead of work study or work release, whatever they called it back then. I went over and did college classes, and that was my way to get home 15, 30 minutes earlier because I could do a college class. And anyway, I was always looking for the angle, not to take a shortcut, but to get a better result. When I look back in time, I was always looking to get a better result faster in everything I was doing.
So you talked about that they were calling you a failure and giving up on you and all that. So, okay, so that happened. So how do you use that now?
Well, there's something in our industry called the $1 Million Roundtable, and it's a very small elite percentage, the top percentage of financial professionals. And there's different levels of it. They have $1 Million Roundtable, they have quarter of the table, they have top of the table. And it's all based around production in terms of commission, sales volume, et cetera. Some of it can be just related to income. And one of the defining moments is the year I left my old firm and went out on my own, and I had a full year under my belt. I made quarter of the table, which the only one to make quarter of the table was the general agent that I had worked under. And he made quarter of the table because of his override on a lot of people and the stuff that was able to go into his code. And he was like 20 plus years senior to me in the business, maybe more. And for me to be able to do that, like my 5th year in the business, make quarter of the table, all the guys I used to work with are like, oh my gosh, how did you do that? And I had no choice, man. I was leveraged to the hilt. I had a new house. I bought a very significant price point house. My wife and I, our dream home, we got married, settled in the same week, and put our neck on the line for a house that was way more than anything I'd ever imagined. And had fully funded my mortgage with my 401k, was at risk of losing my home. My back was up against a wall. Just failure wasn't an option, and I crushed it.
So, and you use that, like when they were all the talk that they gave you and all the attitude and all that, did you keep thinking about that?
Oh, absolutely. Cause
like not to spite anybody, but like, hey, let me jam it up your ass because you're giving up on me. I'm not saying this is the right thing to do, guys. If you're listening to this, to me, it's the right thing to do because it will give you rocket fuel. And I have some people, I'm getting fired up a little bit. Sorry. But I got some people that have given up on me in my life from when I was a kid till about 3 years ago. There's one in particular person. I'm not going to say any names right now. And my mission every day, besides being someone's hero and helping people, to do that is to show them that they made the wrong decision. And I ride on that because this comeback, anytime I'm getting knocked down, the comeback's so much stronger because I feel like I'm on a rubber band ride. Like that setback is the rubber band being pulled back. And then when it lets go, that your boy C-Roc fires up. So did you feel that same way? Like this is the stuff that I get excited about, obviously.
I was always curious because it was so ingrained in me that $1 Million Roundtable was such a big deal that it was always ingrained in me. Like I was always looking to see who else in our area, who else from Delaware was actually going to make it there because it was such an elite group. And I just knew that they would see my name under quarter of the table and they were here and I was here. And it was empowering for me, right? And that was one experience. Another one that was really big was I had put together a study group you see, backing up a little bit, I had a situation where I was part of a study group, and I realized that in order for me to get a level of success I wanted, I had to really step up my game. And so I wanted to make twice the money I was. So the simple solution was I worked twice as hard, right? Twice as hard, make twice the money. I was doing 120 hour weeks, and I put together a study group. And my study group pointed out to me that my life was out of balance. And what's interesting about that is I was in denial. And what they basically told me after 3 days together, they said, Chris, you keep doing what you're doing, you're going to end up like us. And Mike, this study group is kind of neat about this, C-Roc, is that the study group I put together with people that I looked to as mentors that were senior to me in the business, that I was actually going to leave my own business to go mentor under them, to study under them for free. I would have done it, any one of them. And I put this study group together, and I don't know how, but they all came to my office. And I thought, if I never see these guys again, I want to learn from them. And at the end of that 3-day session, one of the comments that was made to me, they said, Chris, keep doing what you're doing. You're going to end up like us. And I was like, man, that's the point. But what they actually meant was a couple of them, more than a couple, had been divorced. One guy was married and divorced from the same woman twice. True story, right? Another one failing in marriage. Another one had problems with substance. And lots of things were happening that weren't favorable that you don't realize just looking at the surface. Yeah. But we opened our hearts to each other. And one of the things that I set out to do was I had to get a better coaching program behind me to get control of my time, different time system, and to focus more on results, not effort, because I was just 100% effort. And I came close, Mike, to losing my family. I would say, my opinion, I came close to losing my family because they went on 3 summer trips and Chris went on none, one summer. And I got 3 kids, beautiful kids, amazing wife. And I could just see that I was on the verge. That couldn't continue.
Right.
So I said, I'm going to take 2 months off. Next summer, I'm going to take 2 months off. I started by taking Fridays off. And then I decided I'm going to take 2 months off. And all my peers in my mastermind group, they say, Chris, you can't do that. Chris, how are you going to do that? You can't leave your business. You can't do this. You can't do that. And Mike, there was a book that I had read that was a little empowering for me, The 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss. And he has this attitude about him that I don't know how I felt about it at the time, but his attitude was, what's the worst that could happen, right? You take control of your time. What's the worst that's going to happen? You're going to lose a deal. You're going to lose a relationship. You're going to lose a client. And I thought about it and I said, what's more important? Me risking losing some of our best relationships or me losing my family? And that was fuel for me to say, you know what? Business doesn't matter. Family comes first. And my funny thing is, I took 2 months off, came back to the office for 3 days during the 2 months, strategically planned it out. That 2-month period, over the course of a 13-month range, I took 6 months off. 6 months. And I was a guy that didn't go on vacations, didn't leave the business, was working 7 days a week. And I took off every Friday, and then I took off literally 6 months out of a 13-month period. And the funny thing happened. My income went up, my relationships with my spouse and my team improved, and I got out of my own way. I mean,
now when you first started doing that, did you feel guilty?
Oh yeah.
How long did it take to get over that?
It took a while to unplug, but day one of my first trip was Brexit. I don't know if you remember that, but I was on our boat. I'm into boating. I was on our boat off the coast of New Jersey, somehow got a cell signal, and I got an email that said, Chris, what should we do? And my response was, about what? And I thought, you know what? Man. I deserve vacation too. And I deserve to have family time too. We all do. And I just had to come to the reality that I had a good group of people around me, good team that I built. And I just had to have confidence that they could handle it. And if a client couldn't be understanding that I was on vacation, that they weren't the right relationship to work with.
And so while you were on vacation, you didn't take any calls, you didn't do any checking emails, none of that? Or did you take some time to, like, let's say I take an hour a day, I'm going to check emails, but the rest of the day I'm off? You know what?
For like the first 2 weeks, I checked in by telephone with our office manager. My email was being managed by somebody else. And I knew that we were going to be, we actually went up to the Great Lakes and we were out in the sticks of Canada on the boat. So I knew we would be out of cell service range, really away from civilization, period. So I knew we'd be out of touch. And that was the disconnect that I needed to just completely unplug. And best thing I ever did and have done every year now.
Gotcha. And one other question I had for you was, when you came back, what was that like?
It was refreshing. It was good. I was excited to come back. Actually, about 6 weeks into my 2-month trip, I was like clawing at the walls. I couldn't wait to get back. I just, kind of hit my limit, was really looking forward to getting back. And I came back refreshed, rejuvenated, feeling good. And the funny thing is, nobody knew I left except for my team. Like, really, nobody knew I left.
Yeah. So we have this issue as human beings that we think people think about us more than they think they. Wait a minute. We think people think about us more than they actually do. So it's a ego thing, and I think that really the case is that people really, they might miss you and realize it's your way or something, but then they got their lives going on. They got their freaking notifications on their phone blasting at them constantly. Their kids, this and that. I mean, really, but. My question, though, for your business is that do you rely on new customers as much, or is it more retention and servicing the ones you have? So while you were gone, you weren't adding to your book of business.
Yeah, good question.
Because a lot of people that are listening, maybe in sales or have a business that relies on new business, and if they stop, they lose momentum.
Well, obviously, we rely on new business for growth to a significant degree. I also look at my business long-term. I don't take shortcuts. In our industry, we have a choice whether we accept upfront compensation or whether we accept a trail type revenue, which in most cases, doesn't matter to a client either way, depending on the types of tools that we're using. And so what I had to do was batch task everything that needed to be done in advance. So all of our key relationships I had meetings with right before I left town so that they just saw me, they didn't miss me. And if there were follow-ups, we did it after the fact. But you're right, I didn't take new business during that time. And in the summer, all up until last year was the first year we took new business while I was away over the summer. But I went away the first 3 summers. I went away for 2 months and we just didn't take new clients. We just basically played defense proactively, but we played proactive defense to service the existing relationships and didn't take new. And last summer, my number one goal was I wanted new client relationships to still be onboarded. If they were in the pipeline, I didn't want them to have to wait 2 months to get their financial plan. So that was a strategic move to add another financial planner on our team.
So what advice would you give to someone that wants to do that, as far as what stage should they be in their business before they make a move like that? Because obviously when you first start, even in sales, you're first starting, 95% of your time is prospecting. You don't have anybody to service. You don't have any files to work on. It's prospect. But then as you get, more seasoned in sales or business, then you get a situation where it's kind of like a machine and you're servicing more than, and you still have some prospecting time. But what are your thoughts on that?
I understand what you're asking. But I think confidence comes from having economic security. When you've got confidence, knowing that you'll be economically secure regardless of what happens, if you've got money in the bank, that's a position of power, right? Like, Mike, if you hit Powerball, you might not hesitate to take time off, right? Nobody would, right? Because you got the economic security that, I don't care, it'll be here when I come back. Well, at some point, you just got to realize what's important to you. You don't have to take 2 months off, right? But if you're struggling to take a week off like I was, I couldn't go away. And when I went away, I couldn't get the daggone phone out of my hands. I was always connected, right? Like now, I don't have email on my phone anymore. I got rid of that because that, was a distraction. Or, what good comes from an email on a Friday afternoon at 6 o'clock? Not much in our business, nothing I can do about it. So somebody's just giving their baggage to me. So I would say if you've got economic security and you've got a nest egg that you can fall back on, that you can do that planning. But how do you deal with it from a sales standpoint? You load up your pipeline, you manage expectations, you say, is this something that's critical and time sensitive that we need to deal with before I go away? So transparency. Or is this something that can wait till we come back? You ask your customer, what's your level of urgency? And then the other thing, Mike, you could do is, obviously it's like going away for a trip. You get an amazing amount of stuff done when you have a real short compressed time frame to do it. And planning for a trip to be gone for 2 months, you need like a month to plan for that. And you're just going to be on fire for that month, and you're going to be smoked when it's time to go. It'll be worth it. Does that make sense?
Yep. So speaking of that and talking about putting money away and feeling good about that, there may be some young people listening to this show that are just getting into some money finally, starting to make some good money. What is your, percentage wise, we talk about a lot of times trying to live off of 20 to 30% of the income, your gross income. Because, Mr. Taxman's going to take 30, 40%. You're supposed to save 40%, give or take some. What do you think about being really conservative when you're first starting out? It's kind of difficult after you got started and your bills are where they are and your lifestyle's certain level. But when you're newer, I want to talk to newer people that are just starting to get into some money and give them some advice of, listen, don't go nuts and go buy the big house. Don't go buy the cars. Don't go do all that. Start maybe percentage wise, but like, what are you thinking like that they should try to focus on?
Yeah. Well, I think the number can be a big variable, and it varies. If you are a time and effort person that you're working hourly and overtime, you obviously can structure it that way, knowing what a routine paycheck looks like, a base paycheck, right? But if you're a high income sales professional and you're hitting some really good numbers, try and avoid that lifestyle creep. It's so much easier to make choices and to have choices when you've got money standing behind you, right? Everything becomes a decision and not a necessity. If you don't have money, that's when you end up having to make cash flow decisions. That's when you end up having high interest rate debts and things of that nature, is because your back's against the wall. So, percentage wise, Mike, I can go in alignment with you on your proposal there, setting aside a third or 20%, but it's really going to depend on the individual situation. I would say as you start to make more money, stick with the lifestyle you got, be patient. That's one of the best advice I ever got from a mentor. Why rush it? Be patient. It'll happen. And build that cash flow up, because when you got money in the bank, you're in a position of power. And the guy who holds the bag of money always seems to have the power in a transaction.
Right, right.
You've probably seen that in your life, right? Cash buyer.
Yeah. Those that people listening that have a problem with money or have a problem with people going after money, please explain to me, what is easier, living a life than having money, or living a life not having money, trying to scrape pennies together? That sucks. There's problems that come with having money, but they're nowhere near as, I think they're more fun problems than they are when you don't have any. And, that's, to me, I have to go after that. I want to encourage other people to go after that, because I know what comes with it. It's not about greed, but you can help your family. You can provide for your family. You have a better feeling, and your heart lasts longer, hopefully, and you can help other people. And that's to me, we all have a certain potential, earning potential, I should call it. Everybody has a potential. By the way, potential is not static. Mm-hmm. Potential, and you can speak on this, I want to hear your thoughts on this. Potential rises as you accomplish more, your confidence goes up. Am I right?
Yeah.
So everybody has a certain potential right now, but then that can rise as you accomplish and achieve things. And so that's my big thing, is I want to keep pushing people to greatness and drive greatness out of people that they don't even know they have inside of them. And speak on that. What are your thoughts on potential and people striving for that potential? And how do you advise your clients? Like, I know you do financial advising and planning, but do you go outside of that a little bit to try to kind of push them to their potential personally?
Yeah. One of the coaches I've worked with once shared a quote, and they said, the enemy of thriving is arriving, right? It's complacency. It's getting comfortable. Like you talked about goal setting, and one of the things that we did when we first may have started working together professionally, but every 90 days I sit down and I write out goals. And what's funny is I'll write it down and I'll put it somewhere. I've written down goals so many times, and Mike, they're always different. They're always evolving. And I put the stuff away and forget about it. And then I'll stumble across it 5 years later. And the goals that I set out to achieve, maybe over a 10-year or 15-year, 20-year time frame, they've all already happened. I mean, it's really amazing. The mind is this powerful thing, right?
And how often do you write your goals down?
Every 90 days.
Every 90 days. So even doing it every 90 days, it works. Think about doing it every day. Mm-hmm. That's crazy, right? We literally fill up I'm not bullshitting you. We literally fill up like notepads every single day, writing our goals down. Look,
there you go.
I mean, now
gotta write it down.
Yeah. I like the idea of breaking it down into the things, like financial goals, spiritual goals, family goals, personal goals, health goals, all that. Maybe every 90 days, like you're saying, but like a list of dreams that you really want, like big fantasy dreams, writing them down every single day. And really planting that seed and to me, man, something comes up now. I'll fire through it. I might get pissed for a minute, but then I'm realizing, man, it's okay. Here we go. It's just a little bit of a training session here. I'm going for this. This is nothing compared to what I'm going for. And it's made all the difference in the world.
Goal setting, I think, has been probably the number one catalyst for growth for me. Just the thought, I had to put mental energy into thinking what's possible. What am I capable of? Mike, you're a big advocate of 10X. I am too. Anyone listening in on the podcast here, you want to make twice the money? It's real simple. Go work twice as hard. You want to make 4 times the money, 10 times the money? if you want to go from making 100 grand a year to $1 million, you're going to have to approach your business differently than you are today, right? If you want to go from making $1 million to 10 million, I got news for you. Your business has to change, and you're probably limited in your capacity based on your top client relationship, right? If you're selling, I don't care if you're selling knives and you're selling it door to door, well, you're limited by the number of households that you can knock on doors and what neighborhood you're going into, right? But if on the other hand, you're selling knives to, a retail location that has stores all around the country, well, you're going to have bigger sales, bigger tickets, right?
Or if you hire a sales team.
Or if you hire a sales team, you got it. Mm-hmm. So then there's, human leverage, right?
Yep.
And if you really want to grow, then that's kind of like this next evolution, this next step that, for those of you on the call, if you don't have somebody that you're able to delegate stuff to, an assistant, personal assistant, what have you, I mean, you got to start outsourcing the stuff that's not worth your time.
Yeah. And that's something that we're going to be talking about tonight, by the way. And I have some crazy ideas with regards to delegation, but not only delegation, it's also trying to replicate yourself to the best of your abilities. Now, sometimes when you try to replicate yourself, you bring someone and train them on what you're doing. They're only going to reach maybe 60 to 70% of your capacity or what you could do, your skill level, your talent. But there's times where you train someone and they teach you something and they excel past you. So you like, a lot of times people can't get by this. They don't want to bring somebody in to train them because they're like, oh, they won't be able to do it as well as I can. And I'll just do it. It's just easier if I do it. Right? Because it's easier at that moment because they got to train somebody. It takes work and effort to train somebody over a period of time. But what they're missing out on is, besides somebody coming in and being 70% capacity and then getting several people like that, and that 30% that you're losing in capacity or production, you're going to gain back because now you have yourself plus that other person. You have 170% rather than just 7. But what if you run into somebody that can produce 2 times what you can produce? And you miss out on the opportunity because you think it's easier just to do it yourself.
Yeah.
That's what I always thought about, because I can tell you right now, there's people that work for me that are way better than I was as a loan officer.
Yeah. You got to get out of their way, and you got to empower them, and you got to coach them and mentor them so that they can reach their potential. And honestly, that's been a struggle for me, is figuring out. I shared with you my background. I haven't had the hard knock struggles, right? I've had people tell me you can't do something, and that's been rocket fuel for me to move ahead. You tell me you can't do something, I'm going to show you how I can. I'm going to show you I can do it 10 times better. Tell me I can't take time off, I'm going to take a lot of time off. You asked me what goals and priorities I have. My goal is not to work. I don't want to get to the end of life and be like, he was known for working a lot, like my dad, right? I don't want that. I want to be known for helping people accomplish their goals, get through challenging transitions, maximizing their potential. And right now, what's holding me back is helping my team maximize their own potential. Because if I can help them maximize their potential, then that's only going to help them, and it's going to help push me along. It's going to help all the people we serve, right? So it's really about team. But Mike, sometimes people get hung up on, I need to hire somebody who's as good as me, and that's not necessarily the case, right? You might be an A+ player, and the people you might hire, they're not you. But it might be that they have stronger suits in other areas, right? Stronger skill sets. Like, we've got somebody on our team that loves paperwork. I hate paperwork. I don't like paperwork. I don't like anything to do with paperwork, but she loves it. Put her in a room with no interaction with humans and just give her paperwork. She is happy. And, but that's not me. So you find people to do the things and delegations that really just aren't where your unique ability is.
Right. Have you taken DISC assessments or given your employee DISC assessments before?
Yeah, we've done a variety of different ones. One of the ones we focus a lot on is Colby, and we've got to get back on it, but there's a unique ability skills finder. There's stuff that you're able to do. There's stuff that you're capable of doing. You excel at doing, and there's some stuff that only you can do. And we've identified that on our team. I'm the only one that can take really complicated technical matters and break it down into plain English for people to understand, right? That's a unique ability that I have that no one on our team has that same skill set. But other people on our team are able to do much better at things that I'm just competent in, right? It is what it is. And you got to just surround yourself with good people.
Well, Chris, I appreciate you coming on today, man. I've had a great time. We can go on forever. We do actually go on forever sometimes. And not on the podcast, though. But how can my audience engage with you, or what kind of services do you have to offer the audience?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, you can obviously Google me, but LindenbergFinancial.com is our financial planning practice. When you look at it, you'll see that we have this niche in serving law enforcement. That's our way of giving back to the community. And that's a scalable part of our practice. But we also work with high-income professionals. We also work with entrepreneurs. And then the company of divorce is for families that have a lot riding on the line financially, high net worth families specifically. The company of divorce, it sounds a little cringeworthy, but it's actually about being in good company. Our job is to help families move forward with dignity and to not have one spouse suffering after a divorce, and to make sure that people's divorces, they get stalled out because, quite honestly, people don't know what they're fighting for. They're like, I want half, or I want everything. They want a pound of flesh, but half is not always fair, and fair is not always equal, and people get stalled out in divorce. And our job is to help people understand the money, because that's what seems to slow them down, so they know what they're fighting for. So you could look us up through the company of divorce, Lindenberg Financial, and then hopefully also through Waymo.
Yeah, baby. Well, listen, thank you so much for joining us, buddy. I appreciate you, man. And I just, I got to get on the boat. So I don't know what you got to do to get on the boat around here, but you got Just Ask campaign. Can I get on the boat sometime, man? No, but you can get on my jet when I buy my jet. So
we'll fly somewhere exotic. I'll have the boat there.
I'll put your boat on my jet.
Now we're talking.
Hey, so listen, thanks for coming on, man. You guys have been listening to the What Are You Made Of podcast with Mike C-Roc. Please go subscribe on podcast platforms like iTunes, Spotify, or your favorite. And also, if you want to watch these, I have a cool thing called Zoom video, and we put it up on YouTube, on my YouTube channel, Mike C-Roc Ciorrocco. Please go support your boy on this mission, the Waymo movement. As you know, we're here to help people tell their story, inspire others, and keep going. Until next time, it's your boy C-Roc. Thank you for joining me. I love you all. Thank you for being a part of the What Are You Made Of podcast. So that you don't miss future episodes, please rate and subscribe to the What Are You Made Of podcast on your favorite listening or viewing apps, and follow me on your favorite social media platforms. I would love to hear your stories and past experiences and engage with you further.